All right. We are back on the Morning Brew with Friends with one of New Mexico's, I guess, newest residents, right? You and your wife just moved here.
We sure did, early August, so we're about as green as it gets.
What did you think of the Balloon Fiesta?
It was unbelievable.
Did you go? Were you there on the ground?
We did, and you know what's funny is long before we knew we were coming to New Mexico, Balloon Fiesta was on my wife's bucket list. She just
very cool.
It was one of the things she really wanted to do, and it was not as high on my radar screen, and so of course we get up at 4 in the morning,
right.
And one of my colleagues.
4? That's sleeping in for us.
I know. It seems that way. I'm getting that idea, and I'm driving down the road, and my wife is just a pile of glitter already.
Oh, really?
At 4:30 in the morning, and I'm
That's
thinking,
awesome.
This better be good. And
what am I getting myself into?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to tell you, it was absolutely spectacular.
That's cool. That's very. So one of the mass ascensions.
We sure did.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Zach is the new director of the Jewish Federation of New Mexico, and it's interesting. You were working with the Realtor Association, and you were overseeing what was the Asia and Pacific operations for them out of Chicago, and then this job to head up the the Jewish Federation of New Mexico pops up, and you just said, "Hey, that sounds like me," like out of the blue, or what happened?
Well, that's the short story. That's the Cliff Notes. The slightly longer story is that I'd spent about 10 years in large trade associations, nonprofits, and most recently was overseeing the Asia Pacific and Middle East operations, plus international volunteer programs and governance for the international wing of the National Association of Realtors. Mm-hmm. And over the course of a career, you kind of build these skill sets, and especially in the nonprofit sector, you learn to do so much.
Right.
And so I started thinking about the next phase and the next 20, 30 years. What am I going to do?
Right. Where do you take that skill to make a difference?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And decided I wanted to. Well, there's a Jewish value. It's in Hebrew. It's tikkun olam. It's literally translates as repairing the world, and that's kind of where I realized I wanted to contribute was in a Jewish organization, a community organization.
So were you looking for something in New Mexico, or were you looking for something that was Jewish, and you happened to find the two together?
It was exactly that. I was looking for something Jewish, happened to find the two together. And when you decide you want to become a Jewish community professional, it is. You kind of go where the work is, and yet my wife and I both grew up west of the Mississippi. We're outdoors people, and so when we would lay in bed at night, we'd talk and say, gosh, it would be great to end up somewhere like New Mexico. And
we love to hike. We love to take our mountain bikes out. Love to do something cool.
Exactly, and it just came together serendipitously, and we are just so thrilled to be here.
And with that comes, I guess, a new plan to rebrand and refocus the organization, right?
That's correct. The Jewish Federation of New Mexico has actually been in existence since 1948. So it's got quite a long history.
Absolutely.
And at our core, we're an organization that typically funds and supports other organizations that serve needs in the community, and specifically in the Jewish community. For instance, youth programs through B'nai B'rith, the arts through the Keshet Dance Company here in town, and a number of others, programs for the elderly and underserved through the Jewish Care Program, which is also co-run through the JCC. So we've typically done a lot of that type of fundraising for those types of community needs, but we really want to reposition ourselves, not so much as an organization that I think right now is seen as always having a handout, always kind of collecting these funds, but not clear on exactly where they're going. We know.
When you have to keep explaining that we work with this group and that group and this other group.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we really want to become more of a community facilitator. We want to start partnering more and more willingly with other organizations throughout the state of New Mexico. We are a statewide agency to bring programs, services to Jewish communities throughout New Mexico, and really create a sense of ownership and buy-in among the community to really participate and feel that they're part of something. And the Jewish Federation of New Mexico would like to spearhead that community building effort.
It's great. Well, I didn't even know that there was an executive director, really, even of the association. I think it's kind of been a little bit behind the scenes. I've seen the logo. I've seen it like at the JCC, for example. You'll see the federation logo on things like this building was brought to you by. But I don't even think I ever put a face to a director for it before.
Well, so I'm glad that I'm finally here. And
we're great. It's great to have you on, because I think a lot of people didn't realize it. And so, how do you go about doing this? I mean, is this the kind of thing that you've got experience doing this all over? I mean, do you just launch in and do a bunch of media stuff like this, or do you have to go out and actually just do the deep dive into the community and just really inject yourself into every every facet of it.
Well, yes to all of the above. We absolutely need to do a better job at the Jewish Federation of New Mexico of telling our story, telling people who we are, because in New Mexico especially, and there are federations all over the country, and in some places like where I came from in Chicago, where you have 200,000 Jewish people in the city alone.
Right. It's probably a very active.
It's very active. There's it's the organization itself is very well known. You don't have to do a whole lot of explaining.
Right.
But in New Mexico, actually, my predecessor, who had been on this show in the past, I know a couple of times, and he commissioned the first ever Jewish demographic study in New Mexico.
Oh.
Through that study, we learned that there are actually somewhere between 20 and 25,000 Jewish people within the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
But it's a state of 2 million. So what we really would like to do through outreach like this, obviously in the media, but also getting into the community, and for me personally, just creating this learning exercise for myself to learn what the community needs. We'd like to serve those 20, 25,000 Jews, but through that service also serve the broader New Mexico community as well, and show that we as the Jewish community can really be a contributor and what we say is a light unto the community at large.
An active participant in everything going on here. That's very cool. So how much money do you guys have to raise?
Well, the answer is as much as possible.
You can,
and it is about raising money, but it's also before we can reasonably ask people to give of their hard-earned resources. We do want to create a sense of community and create a sense that people are contributing to something that matters. So how much we raise right now? Our campaign is in the $600,000 range. We'd love for it to be quite a bit higher, and
always,
so as the next few months go by, you'll see us being far more visible in the community. You'll see a branded campaign roll out, really changing how we interact and how we kind of market and brand very organically this effort.
What's your next big event?
Our next big event is probably going to be in the Hanukkah season. We're going to probably do a little bit of a campaign to show who we are, what we do, also working with the JCC on some Hanukkah programming, and then around the first of the year, roll out the big strategic plan.
That sounds like a plan. We'll be back in a couple of seconds with our friend Paul Gessing on the Morning Brew with Friends.